They laughed at her name. She filed her paperwork right there. Under the harsh glare of the TSA checkpoint's fluorescent lights, at Gate 22, Erica Monroe watched the boarding agent wave aside her meticulously prepared boarding pass. A low chuckle rippled through the queue when he mispronounced her name, turning Monroe into a crass joke. The terminal's bustle drowned in her ears as that single-syllable insult landed like a slap. Passengers shifted uncomfortably, some snickering, others staring. Erica's jaw tightened. Her eyes remained calm but crackled with resolve. In that heartbeat, the quiet expectation of polite accommodation shattered into shards of indignity. She reached for her phone, poised to transfer that anger into immediate action. If you believe dignity demands action, hit subscribe, rang that bell, and tell us in the comments, what would you do if they mocked your identity? Stay tuned. You won't want to miss how she turned humiliation into power. Erica Monroe stepped forward, her polished heels clicking on the tile floor, each tap a metronome counting down the seconds of escalating tension. She inhaled a measured breath, cold, steady, controlled, before turning to face the agent, whose smirk still lingered in the overhead camera's view. Around her, the fluorescent lights reflected off the stainless steel conveyor belts, the gleam of plastic bins stacked like silent sentinels. Erica's tailored charcoal suit bore the faint sheen of a CEO used to commanding boardrooms, not pleading with TSA agents. "Explain my delay," she said, voice low but unflinching. The agent's smirk faltered as murmurs rippled through the waiting line. A business traveler raised an eyebrow. A mother clutching a toddler paused mid-step, curiosity warring with discomfort on her face. Passengers' phones tentatively emerged, screens flickering with live streams of Erica's confrontation. The agent cleared his throat, fingers fumbling over the passenger roster. "Ma'am, standard procedure. We need additional ID verification." His tone suggested he was reading from a script, one that failed to conceal the underlying bias. Erica watched him intently, her expression never wavering. The hum of the baggage scanner rose to a high-pitched whine, underscoring her growing resolve. She placed a single hand on her eco-leather briefcase, an emblem of her sustainable aviation empire, and patted it reassuringly. This was no ordinary travel hiccup. As CEO of Skyway Innovations, she had launched carbon-neutral jets and consulted with international regulators. Here, however, she stood reduced to a footnote in a security protocol baited with prejudice. 5 minutes ticked by. The line behind her grew restless, a stuttering chorus of whispered questions. Why was she still here? What took so long? Erica seized their attention with a calm exhale, her presence filling the frame like a spotlight on an empty stage. She tapped her phone discreetly, one message to her legal team. Document every word. Prepare complaint. Another to airline headquarters, resolve or I escalate now. The digital command zipped into action, turning private indignation into a public dossier. Suddenly, a ripple of movement passed through the crowd. A reporter in business casual incognito but lens raised sidled closer, capturing Erica's composed defiance. Her PR director materialized at her elbow, phone at the ready. Erica continued to stare down the agent, every muscle in her posture radiating control. The agent offered a hurried apology, throat clearing, as he scanned her passport. But the moment had passed protocol's threshold and entered the realm of accountability. Cell phones recorded his fumbling attempts at explanation. "System flagged your name," his voice trailed off, as Erica cut him off with a single raised hand. "No more excuses," she said, crisp as air at altitude. "I expect you to clear me now, or I'll have you answer to the Department of Transportation." Her tone left no room for denial. In that charged hush, even the conveyor belts held their breath. Nearby travelers set down suitcases, their wheels halting like a collective gasp. For a moment, the terminal was a theater paused at the climax, CEO versus checkpoint. At last, the agent's scanner crackled with approval. He looked up, eyes downcast, and nodded. Erica offered a single polite nod in return. No triumph in her smile, only the quiet victory of justice served. She stepped onto the other side, reclaiming her passage. The line resumed, but the atmosphere had shifted. Laughter was replaced by murmurs of respect. Erica turned briefly to face the camera, capturing the scene. "Thank you for your cooperation," she said, voice calm. "Now, let's ensure no one else endures this." Then she strode away, each click of her heels echoing like a heartbeat of empowerment. As she disappeared into the departure corridor, the live stream froze on her silhouette, an image of unbowed dignity. Behind her, a fleet of smartphones stored footage that would soon ripple across social media demanding change. Gate 22 would never be the same. Late afternoon sunlight streamed through the vast glass facade of Horizon International Airport, casting long golden beams across the polished terrazzo floors. The terminal's rush-hour crescendo had not yet begun. Families ambled toward carousel pickup areas. Business travelers wheeled their carry-ons with purposeful strides, and flight crews in crisp uniforms exchanged nods and clipped good afternoons as they passed. In this familiar choreography of departure and arrival, one figure moved with a markedly different energy. Erica Monroe emerged from the back seat of a sleek black sedan, her silhouette framed by the vehicle's open door. She adjusted the lapel of her charcoal gray suit jacket, immaculate and tailored to perfection, before stepping onto the cool tile. Her pump-heeled shoes clicked with measured authority, a rhythmic counterpoint to the soft rumble of distant jet engines. In her right hand, she carried an eco-leather briefcase embossed with Skyway Innovation's subtle logo, a stylized wing in flight. Inside that case lay design blueprints for the world's first carbon-neutral commuter aircraft, patents pending and contracts binding national governments to a more sustainable future. Yet none of that mattered in the moment she approached Gate 22's TSA checkpoint. Erica paused, scanning the scene with calm detachment. The stainless steel podiums glinted under the terminal lights. Plastic trays were stacked like neatly aligned soldiers awaiting orders. Digital displays flickered with boarding numbers, flight statuses, and weather advisories. Above it all, a series of TV screens looped travel news, an announcement of a new transatlantic route, a safety bulletin about runway maintenance in Denver, and a local segment praising Skyway's pilot program for electric airport shuttles. She inhaled, tasting the faint tang of airport coffee and the metallic echo of carry-on wheels on tile. Then she lifted her gaze to the uniformed TSA agents guiding patrons through the security lanes. She couldn't have known that in a matter of seconds she would be at the center of a different kind of broadcast. Erica stepped forward, briefcase in hand, and paused at the head of the VIP line. A lone agent at Podium 4 glanced up from his tablet eyes, briefly taking in her CEO badge clipped to the front pocket of her jacket. It was the same badge that granted her unlimited access to high-security facilities around the globe, military bases, research labs, even private hangars owned by national airlines. It was a symbol of trust earned over years of engineering breakthroughs and boardroom negotiations with defense ministers and climate advocates alike. She placed her boarding pass and ID on the podium's tray. The agent's finger hovered above the touchscreen. "Thank you, ma'am," he said, an unremarkable phrase delivered without warmth or recognition. He swiped her documents through the scanner and frowned. Erica inhaled softly. Everything about her posture remained calm, but a silent storm gathered behind her composed exterior. She watched the tablet screen flash red, "Identity verification required." "Excuse me?" she asked, voice even carrying just enough cool steel to hint at the resolve beneath. The agent didn't meet her eyes. He tapped on a sequence of menus as though hoping the glitch would resolve itself. Instead, the screen displayed instructions for an enhanced pat-down. Subject requires secondary screening. Erica's pulse remained steady, but her mind went to work tracking every possible protocol, every flight safety regulation, every TSA standard. None of them mentioned secondary screening for credentialed frontline executives. A flicker of something darker crossed her thoughts: prejudice. Behind her, the line of travelers shifted impatiently. A well-dressed man cleared his throat. A mother hushed her child. Erica felt the pull of their gazes, equal parts curiosity and discomfort. She wondered how many of them could name Skyway's latest achievements or recognize the logo on her briefcase. But in that moment, none of that mattered. The rulebook had been rewritten at the agent's fingertips, and she was the unwitting test case. She slipped her earpiece free and slid it into her briefcase. Forbes lists, environmental accolades, and UN commendations meant nothing if she allowed her dignity to be decided by someone unwilling to look beyond a name. She raised her chin and addressed the agent firmly. "Could you please show me the policy that mandates this?" she asked. The hum of the security scanners, the beeping of the conveyor belt. Even the soft murmur of the airport cafeteria speakers faded into the background. All attention coalesced around the small podium. The agent's mouth opened once, twice, and then he recited the same lines, standard procedure for flag verifications. "Please step aside." His voice lacked conviction. Erica's gaze sharpened. "Flag verification," she repeated. "On what grounds?" She could see his jaw tighten as he struggled to maintain his carefully constructed facade of authority. The polite scripts of customer service crumbled in the face of her quiet insistence. She took a small step forward enough that her reflection in the stainless steel walls flared with determination. "I'm the CEO of a company working hand in hand with the FAA and the Department of Energy," she said. "I've facilitated hundreds of flights, ensured the safety of thousands of passengers, and negotiated sustainability agreements exceeding $1 billion. But here I stand treated as if I'm nothing more than a security risk. That is unacceptable." The agent's gaze flickered upward, finally meeting hers. For a heartbeat, the rhythm of the world slowed, passengers halted. Phones pivoted overhead, announcements stuttered. The Grand Terminal had become an arena, and Erica's calm command the opening move in a contest of principle. He swallowed, and Erica let the silence linger, a quiet demand for accountability. Cameras hovered at the edges, passengers recording news outlets live streaming the entire spectacle, ready to cascade across social media. But she refused to be theater. She was the architect of her own narrative. At that moment, she tapped her phone twice. One message shot to her legal team back at Skyway's headquarters, document all. "Prepare complaint for immediate filing." Another pinged the airline's VIP liaison resolve, or I file in terminal. "You have 5 minutes." The electronic clicks echoed through the hushed corridor, like the sharp crack of a judge's gavel. Behind her, a uniformed manager emerged from a side hallway, alerted by a subtle notification, VIP escalation in progress. He hurried forward, blazer flapping, as Erica turned her gaze upon him with unwavering composure. "Good afternoon," she said, voice level. "I'd like to understand why I'm being subjected to extra screening that no other passengers in this line have encountered." She gestured broadly at the length of the queue, where travelers who'd arrived after her now passed through unimpeded. The manager blinked mid-sentence with an apology already on his lips. He raised his hand to call his team on the radio, then paused. Somewhere behind the mirrored walls, the TSA protocol manual was being consulted, and the weight of corporate scrutiny pressed down like gravity. Erica exhaled softly, folding her hands across her briefcase. The moment hung as taut as a drawn bow. Passengers stood rapt as if watching the final seconds of a high-stakes summit. Then, with a subtle nod from an unseen supervisor, the secondary screening light extinguished. The agent removed the secondary screening notice, and the scanner beeped green. The briefcase moved through unimpeded. The trays cleared. Passengers exhaled. Erica offered the agent a single measured nod, no triumph in her expression, only a return of her right to passage. She gathered her belongings, sliding the earpiece back into her ear, and leveled her gaze at the VIP manager. "Thank you," she said. "Let's ensure this never happens again." He nodded vigorously. Her ascent through the metal detector felt like crossing a finish line. When she reached the other side, she pivoted briefly, allowing the dozen phones trained on her to capture the image, the CEO who refused to be lambasted by prejudice, who turned an airport checkpoint into a moment of accountability. Then she walked on her heels, clicking each step, reclaiming the authority that had been momentarily denied. The afternoon light glinted off her briefcase as she disappeared down the departure corridor, leaving a terminal forever changed in her wake. As the afternoon light pooled in golden pools across Gate 22's floor, Erica Monroe stepped forward to present her documents. The TSA agent, mid-20s, crisp uniform, mirrored badge, took her boarding pass and ID with one hand, keeping the other planted on the counter. His tablet's glow reflected in his smirk. "Ma'am," he said, voice low, but carried across the line. "Is that really your name, Erica Monroe?" He leaned back as if delivering a punchline. A ripple followed half-suppressed chuckles from the agent's colleagues, stifled laughter, echoing from travelers queued behind Erica. The term Monroe hung in the air like a joke at her expense, a whispered question of authenticity. Erica's identification badge, shiny, engraved with her full title and company seal, swung at her jacket as a silent testament to decades of service, innovation, and leadership. But here at this moment, it meant nothing. Erica's pulse rattled in her ears, a drumbeat of containment. She slid her ID back into her hand, offering a calm nod. "Yes," she said, voice clear and measured. "That's my name." Her words carried the weight of boardrooms, of negotiating billion-dollar contracts, of advising global leaders on sustainable aviation. Yet the agent's gaze flickered away as though embarrassed by his own insolence. She held his stare for a heartbeat longer, then invited him to scan her documents again. The agent swiped and tapped through menus, avoiding eye contact, as though hastening to put distance between his keyboard and her. When the scanner beeped green, Erica expected an apology, a gesture of contrition. Instead, the agent handed her papers back with a curt nod. Next, he said, dismissing her in a single syllable. Behind her, passengers shifted. A mother clutched her child more closely. A businessman pursed his lips, then scrolled through his phone. Erica felt the humidity of their discomfort as if it were her own. Each glance carried an open question. How do we respond when power is reduced to prejudice? She slipped her documents into her briefcase and took a slow breath, letting the indignity pass through her without granting it ownership. This checkpoint was not a classroom. It was a catalyst. As the line moved forward, Erica gathered her composure. Her lips curved in a small, knowing smile, less of victory, more a vow. The laughter had met its counterprime documentation of her resolve. Then in the hush between heartbeats, she tapped her phone twice. A text to her legal team. Document the mockery. Ready to file. Another to the airline's liaison address, this now, or I escalate publicly. Each digital command palpitated like a starting gun. Eyes flicked back to her phones, pivoting. The laughter dissolved into a hush of expectation. Erica Monroe, sustainable aviation pioneer, was about to take flight on a different kind of runway, one of accountability. With her documents reclaimed and her dignity intact, she stepped through the security portal, her heels clicking a cadence of defiance, leaving behind a checkpoint forever altered by a single unrepentant refusal to accept prejudice as protocol. Erica felt her pulse hammer against her temples, though her expression betrayed nothing. Around her, the hum of conveyor belts and the distant clack of luggage wheels formed a low mechanical drone, as predictable as the system she'd spent years perfecting. But inside her chest, an electric storm roiled. Memories sparked behind her calm facade, the hush that fell over boardrooms as she outlined multi-billion-dollar deals, the hush before a prototype took flight. The hush in international summits when she spoke of sustainable aviation's future. She could almost feel the rush of wind in test cockpits, the thrill of altitude as her designs pushed boundaries. She recalled the night she'd watched the first Skyway Innovations solar-powered drone lift off under a starlit sky, each panel humming with potential. She remembered the resolve in her own eyes as she negotiated access to remote airstrips, knowing that every community touched by her work deserved more than lip service. None of that mattered here at Gate 22, where an agent's mocking smirk had attempted to wrest her dignity away. A chill rippled along her spine. She wasn't just any traveler. She was a leader who had redefined industries. Her ID badge, encased in a sleek eco-leather holder and emblazoned with her company's emblem, sat snug in her palm. That badge had been her passport to meetings with Fortune 500 CEOs, to policy briefings at the UN, to the ribbon-cutting ceremonies where she unveiled cutting-edge aircraft. Yet the agent's chuckle had rendered it invisible. Erica shifted her weight onto her left foot, the soft soles of her shoes whispering across the polished floor. She inhaled, feeling the cool air of the terminal enter her lungs and steady her racing heart. In that breath, she wove together resolve and clarity. Her mind sharpened, peeling away the initial shock to reveal a single unwavering thought: this barrier had to be dismantled. She glanced at the passengers around her. A mother hefted a toddler onto her hip, cooing assurances. A young man in a rumpled suit typed furiously on his phone, perhaps responding to emails she herself had once dispatched during overnight red-eyes. Their worlds moved on unconcerned with her personal slight, but Erica's world was defined by ensuring no one else faced this demeaning erasure. She pictured the stream of data she'd later pour over ticket logs, incident reports, staff training modules. She could already see the gaps where prejudice seeped through procedural cracks. This was more than a single affront. It was a symptom of a system that allowed bias to masquerade as policy. And just as she had redesigned aircraft to reclaim uncharted skies, she would redesign this system to reclaim dignity for every traveler. A surge of warmth flickered in her fingertips. She flexed her hand around the briefcase strap, the supple leather a tactile reminder of purpose. Just days ago, she'd closed a major partnership to develop electric airliners that would cut carbon emissions in half. The headlines had hailed her as a visionary. Now headlines would record her refusal to be silenced. Her earpiece crackled to life at her command, a discreet tap on the side of her ear. Her legal team's voice filtered through, calm and attentive. She nodded, even though no one could see. Each syllable of that distant conversation anchored her further in control. There would be no uncontrolled outburst here, only precision, because force of will, when wielded quietly and deliberately, could be more devastating than any public tirade. Behind her, the line advanced. The agent who had mocked her turned to process the next passenger, his shoulder brushing past her arm as if dismissing her existence. Erica allowed the contact to register a final spark in her internal storm, and then she turned away, walking toward the bank of seats near the gate monitors. Each step was measured, deliberate, a manifesto of composure. She settled into a sleek chair, crossing one leg over the other and placing her briefcase on her lap. The gate display above flickered with flight information. Some departures delayed, others on time. Her own flight should appear soon. In a different world, she'd review its status with casual efficiency. In this world, she reviewed it with eyes narrowed in determination. Her gaze lifted as a family strolled past the children giggling at the airport-themed decor painted on the walls. A father carried a toy airplane, and the mother adjusted her scarf. They, like so many travelers, trusted this space to be neutral, to be fair. Erica's indignity threatened that trust, but she would not let it stand. Just then, she allowed her hand to move to the screen of her phone. The passcode entry was swift, practiced, a reflex born of years guarding confidential data. Her screen lit up with message threads, each designated for a different member of her executive circle. She paused, feeling the electric charge of the decision coalesce 2 taps. Here, a single line of instruction there, and the process would begin. But she paused longer, breathing in the ambient hum of the terminal, tasting the sharp tang of the air, sanitized by invisible filters. She closed her eyes for a fraction of a second and let the memory of triumphs wash over her, the day she had stood on the tarmac as her first battery-powered demonstrator taxied under its own power. The day she had watched stakeholders' faces light up when projections showed real savings for communities hardest hit by climate change. Then, eyes open, she pressed send. The storm broke. Across the city, her legal counsel received the documentation request. The airline liaison saw the urgent note demanding immediate engagement. Erica Monroe was no longer just a passenger. She was the catalyst of a reckoning that would ripple through every airline terminal, every security checkpoint, every lounge that thought protocol might override respect. A gentle hush fell over her again as she slid the phone back into her pocket. She folded her hands over the briefcase and leaned back, chin lifted just slightly, her gaze drifting to the terminal's skybridge windows. Outside, planes taxied to runways, lifting into the late afternoon sky toward distant horizons. She would join them soon, but first she would ensure that no other CEO and no other person would be laughed at, shaken off, and let go with a mockery. In that quiet moment beneath the fluorescent glare, Erica Monroe transformed indignity into action. Her inner storm had forged a plan stronger than prejudice, and the system would soon bend to her will. Because to those who thought a chuckle could erase her, she would show that dignity is not a privilege to be granted, it is a right to be defended at every gate, in every terminal, and at every step of the journey. Erica's shoulders squared as she heard the agent's chuckle reverberate through the checkpoint's sterile expanse. Behind her, the line contorted with impatience. A well-dressed consultant tapped his foot, glancing at the departure board while juggling a wheeling carry-on. A young mother in sandals hustled her 2 toddlers, the children's wide eyes flicking between the agent and Erica's composed figure. Every muted cough and shuffling footstep seemed to conspire against her, an unwitting chorus underscoring the gravity of the moment. The terminal's high ceilings reflected the agent's laughter in uneven echoes, each bounce off the overhead panels making his mocking tone crackle like static. Erica felt it sink into her chest, a cold weight of familiarity. Another reminder that her accomplishments, her status, even her meticulously tailored suit and eco-leather briefcase could be rendered meaningless by a single slur of prejudice. She inhaled, holding the breath deliberately, tasting the antiseptic tang of sanitizer dispensers nearby. The line's murmurs and the agent's mocking intonation all heightened her awareness. This was no isolated slight. It was part of a broader pattern, one that relegated black excellence to a footnote in someone else's narrative. A fellow passenger, a sharp-eyed executive in a charcoal gray suit, leaned in to whisper to the person next to him. "That's the CEO from Skyway Innovations, right? Isn't she the one behind those solar-powered cargo planes?" The whispered recognition rippled through the queue like crackling electricity. Now, instead of dismissing her, people recognized her, and their curiosity crackled. Yet even that vindication felt hollow. She did not crave pity or applause. She sought justice. With each second, the agent's performative indifference intensified. He rifled through her boarding pass with theatrical slowness, his fingertips brushing the laminated edge, as if searching for hidden clues. His eyes flickered up to hers, caught the glint of determination there, and darted away as though her unwavering gaze threatened to expose the flimsy veneer of his authority. Erica noted how his uniform starched shirt, crisp tie, stood in stark contrast to the messiness of his conduct. He represented order procedure, the very system she had once navigated to secure billions in funding and approvals. And yet here he was, wielding procedure like a cudgel to diminish her. Behind the counter, the terminal's PA system crackled to life, announcing a last call for a flight she had already boarded, a disembodied voice cutting through the tension like a knife. The flicker of departure times on monitors inched forward. Gate 24 now boarding, Gate 15 delayed. The drone of overhead fans rattled in the sweep of stale air. It was as if the station itself conspired to ratchet up her frustration, every mechanical hum a reminder that the world moved on while she remained stuck. In that moment, Erica's internal temperature rose. She recognized the faces around her, the young consultant in-line lips pressed in a thin line, the tourist who paused her phone halfway to her pocket, caught between taking a picture and averting her eyes, the uniformed airline staffer across the way, idly checking his watch. None of them knew the full arc of Erica's career, the years spent drafting sustainable fuel initiatives, the late nights poring over aerodynamic simulations, the global presentations that shifted entire regional policies. But in that instant, they witnessed a different story. A powerful black woman denied the dignity she had earned. She let her gaze drift upward, tracing the angular lines of the terminal's skylights, the sun's dying rays slanting through the stained glass and casting geometric patterns on the floor. In those fractured beams of light, she felt a surge of clarity, an affirmation that complexity and light could coexist, that broken glass could still refract brilliance. She squared her jaw, pressing her lips into a quiet line. Her pulse throbbed in her temples, but her posture remained unyielding. Crackling behind her was the agent's next word. "Ma'am, if you'd like expedited screening, consider enrolling in our Trusted Traveler program." The suggestion dripped with condescension, as though his mockery stemmed not from bias, but from benevolence. Erica remained perfectly still for a heartbeat longer, allowing the full absurdity of the offer to settle in the space between them. Then, without warning, she pivoted. She took a step that shifted the entire dynamic deliberately. She reached into her suit jacket and pressed a button on her discreet earpiece. The click was soft, yet in that environment it sounded thunderous. Her legal counsel's voice came through in a barely audible whisper. "We're ready when you are." Simultaneously, she allowed her phone to light up in her hand, its screen displaying a draft email to the airline CEO subject, "Urgent incident at Gate 22. Immediate response required." The message was terse but unambiguous. My name was mispronounced, my credentials ignored, and my dignity challenged. I expect an immediate investigation and a formal apology. If I do not receive a response within 30 minutes, I will proceed with legal action. Each word was a carefully calibrated echo of her resolve. Around her, the atmosphere shifted. The consultant gave her a subtle nod of respect. The mother gathered her children closer, no longer rushing, but watching. The staffer across the way straightened his uniform, his earlier indifference replaced by professional curiosity. The terminal, once a passive backdrop to her humiliation, now quivered with anticipation. Behind the counter, the agent's clipped script faltered. He opened his mouth to retort, but faltered his tongue, tripping over procedural parlance. Confronted with her quiet command, the authority he'd wielded so casually now looked feeble. He glanced at his supervisor, just arriving, and the supervisor, noticing the small crowd gathering, lifted an eyebrow in concern. Erica sensed the tide turning. The initial sparks of outrage in those around her had coalesced into a collective awareness that something significant was unfolding, an instant case study in the power dynamics between customer and corporation, between protocol and prejudice. The terminal's PA had fallen silent again, as though even the recording recognized this moment belonged to her. Every person in line now watched her with something resembling anticipation, perhaps even solidarity. The young consultant pulled out his notebook, fingers hovering over the page as though ready to record history. The families paused their earlier haste, replaced by stillness, as if the terminal itself held its breath. Erica closed her eyes briefly, letting the gravity of the moment wash over her. She felt the warmth of sunlight sliding across her cheek, the hum of fluorescent lights overhead, the thunder of distant jet engines. In that symphony of industrial sound, she found the rhythm of her own heartbeat, steady and resolute. She opened her eyes and took one final deliberate breath. Then she tilted her chin up and looked directly at the agent and his supervisor. "Let's resolve this now," she said, her voice calm but carrying the force of her undeniable authority. "I trust your leadership will honor the service your airline claims to uphold. It wasn't a demand, it was a challenge." And in that charged silence, she made it clear that this stand was not just about her name or her flight, but about every professional and every person who had ever been dismissed, ridiculed, or erased. Gate 22 had become a battleground, and Erica Monroe stood at its center, poised to reclaim not only her rightful passage through this terminal, but the fundamental principle that respect is the prerequisite of any journey. Erica paused a heartbeat before unclipping the small, discreet earpiece nestled behind her ear. In the terminal's harsh fluorescence, every detail seemed magnified, the perspiration beading on the agent's brow, the flicker of doubt in his eyes, the sterile gleam of the metal podium. She drew a slow, steady breath, one that carried the weight of boardroom battles fought on 3 continents and the hushed reverence of investors hanging on her words. Then her voice emerged smooth as polished glass, but honed to a razor's edge. "Explain this behavior," she said, each syllable articulated with the precision of a CEO accustomed to commanding rooms. The terminal's ambient roar, the clatter of luggage wheels, the hum of distant jet engines, the murmur of travelers seemed to fall away, leaving only the suspended tension between them. Erica's hand rested lightly on her eco-leather briefcase, her posture unwavering, her gaze never wavering from the agent's flinching face. The agent swallowed his practiced mask of authority, cracking. He opened his mouth to utter the well-rehearsed lines of enhanced screening and security protocol, but the words came out jumbled as if they had been plucked from a script he had never fully learned. "This is a standard procedure," he stammered, glancing around for reinforcement. "We're conducting a random audit. It's for heightened security measures." Erica's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in measured disbelief. "A random audit," she echoed, her tone, betraying neither impatience nor malice, but the cold certainty that comes from knowing one's authority. "You applied it to me. Just now. You have no audit form, no memorandum, no evidence of enhanced security. Show me the policy that allows you to override a valid boarding pass and recognize credentials without cause." His gaze flicked to the empty clip of paper on his podium, the only thing preventing him from producing proof. He inhaled sharply, fingers trembling as they hovered over the laminated policy binder at his side. Then, leaning into the microphone, he cleared his throat. "Sir, ma'am, we have the right to screen any passenger. Security." His voice lacked conviction. Erica's lips curved into a small, controlled smile, less a concession than an acknowledgement of his discomfort. "Of course you do," she replied, voice soft enough to draw the eavesdroppers in. She allowed a pause, letting the silence swell like a tide. "But you do not have the right to weaponize that policy against me or any passenger based on whim or visible difference. Explain the specific criteria you used here." Behind Erica, the crowd had grown. Smartphone cameras wielded by startled business travelers, curious tourists, and even uniformed staff pivoted toward her, their record lights glinting under the terminal's overhead grid. Screens lit up with the real-time drama. Erica's composed defiance, the agent's faltering authority, the arrival of her legal counsel just beyond the stanchions. Each camera angle captured the tableau from a new perspective, ensuring that no nuance, no flicker of injustice would be lost to the sterile air. The agent's cheeks flushed, He swallowed again, his Adam's apple bobbing beneath the collar of his crisp uniform shirt. He repeated more to himself than to her. We have heightened alert protocols for names that match profiles. It's all in the manual. His eyes darted to the open policy binder, then away, as though hoping the words might magically appear on the screen behind Erica. Erica's expression remained serene, her steely assurance unshaken by his feeble justification. She tapped her finger against the earpiece she had pocketed for the moment, a small signal to her legal team that no documentation had been produced. Then she looked back at the agent. Profile-based selection is precisely what you're describing, she said, voice resonant. And profiling based on my name, my appearance, or any factor unrelated to legitimate security concerns is prohibited. Where in the TSA policy manual do you see authority to detain and harass CEO passengers, particularly those from communities historically subjected to profiling without cause? Point me to that section. His jaw clenched. He fumbled with his radio handset, seeking guidance from a superior he could no longer locate. The terminal's overhead monitors scrolled flight statuses, uncaring of the moral crisis unfolding beneath them. Aside from the hiss of ticket printers and the squeak of rubber wheels sliding on polished granite, only Erica's quiet insistence filled the void. Finally, he lifted a laminated page from the binder, hands shaking so visibly that the page fluttered in the stale air. He tried to force his voice steady. Here, Section 4.2.1.2. Agents may conduct additional screening based on irregular patterns or risk indicators. He offered it to Erica as though surrendering a fragile truce. Erica accepted the page, allowing her gloved fingers to brush the edge. The paper was crisp but blank of any specific rule or definition. She examined it carefully, tilting it under the terminal lighting as though reading a secret code. Then she placed it back on the podium. Irregular patterns, she mused, voice low. But no specifics. No guidance on what constitutes an irregular pattern. That's not policy. It's a loophole for bias to masquerade as procedure. She paused again, letting the weight of her accusation settle into the stunned hush. Passengers leaned forward. Phones raised higher reflections of terminal lights dancing across screens. Overhead, an announcement crackled: final boarding call for Flight 407 to Seattle. In a terminal filled with mechanically voiced updates, Erica's human voice had become the unmistakable signal of accountability. The agent opened his mouth, likely to protest, but no words came. His supervisor materialized at his elbow, a stern-faced woman with wire-rimmed glasses and a corporate badge gleaming under her uniform. She glanced at the laminated sheet, then at Erica, and then back at the agent. The power dynamics shifted imperceptibly, the junior agent's authority drained as the supervisor assessed the situation. Erica held her gaze on the supervisor, letting her presence fill the space. If you cannot point to a defined policy that legitimizes your actions here, she said, then you must release me immediately and apologize. If that apology is not forthcoming, I will pursue legal remedies for discrimination, and this incident will be public. Her tone was neither threatening nor pleading, it simply stated the inevitable consequence. A flicker of doubt crossed the supervisor's face. She glanced at her radio, then at the agent, whose own bravado had evaporated. Around them, the murmurs grew, passengers whispering about airline protocols, sharing video clips, debating the fairness of policy. Erica's strategic patience had turned the tide. What began as a personal slight had evolved into a collective confrontation of institutional bias. Moments stretched through, no more than 10 seconds passed. The supervisor cleared her throat, her crisp uniform suddenly seeming like a fragile shield. She leaned forward, her expression softened by the subtle realization that policy without clarity invites misuse. "Ma'am," she said to Erica, voice measured, "I apologize. We will process you immediately. Please proceed through the expedited lane." She turned a crisp nod to the agent. The agent's shoulders slumped, relief and shame mingling in his posture. He stepped aside, allowing Erica to pass. The line's tension dissipated, yielding to a ripple of relieved breaths and the soft click of heels on tile. Erica inclined her head in an elegant nod that acknowledged the concession. As she moved past the stanchions, the crowd parted instinctively. Phones continued to record, motors humming softly to capture every frame. Erica's legal counsel swept into the agent's space, discreetly collecting the policy binder and the stamped page, ensuring that no evidence would be lost. Erica did not hurry. Each step through the checkpoint was measured and deliberate, her blue suit perfectly tailored, her resolve as tangible as the eco-leather of her briefcase. The departure board flickered above Flight 407 to Seattle, now boarding, and beyond it, the bustling concourse beckoned. Behind her, the supervisor and agent exchanged a glance, heavy with defeat and newfound understanding. They had faced someone who refused to be diminished by bias, someone who demanded that procedure adhere to principle. In that exchange, policy had been tested and found wanting. As Erica continued down the jet bridge toward her gate, her posture remained composed, her stride unhurried. She knew this confrontation would ripple beyond Gate 22. Videos would circulate, news outlets would debate, airline executives would call their PR teams. But none of that mattered as much as the simple fact that she had reclaimed her dignity in real time. She had shown that respect is not a granted right but a standard that must be upheld, and that when policy falters, it can be redirected by the unwavering voice of justice. In the final reflections off the terminal's glass walls, Erica's silhouette stood tall, a testament to the power of quiet conviction. She passed through the gate doors at last, ready to board her flight, leaving behind the lingering echoes of a confrontation that would shape policy perceptions and the simple promise that no CEO, no person would again be dismissed with a smirk. 15 minutes had passed since the first crack of indignity, since the agent's smirk had ignited that spark of resolve in Erica Monroe's chest. The terminal's fluorescent glare had long since lost its sterile comfort, and every echo of rolling suitcases now felt like a tick of a clock counting down to accountability. She stood just past the checkpoint stanchions, her tailored navy suit impeccable, her posture a study in composed authority. Around her, the hum of the airport had begun to distort, folding into the charged hush that hovered over Gate 22. Erica's hand hovered over the sleek surface of her eco-leather briefcase. Inside, nestled among the day's briefing papers, lay her phone-silent sentinel to this confrontation. She tapped it once, and her legal team's group chat lit up. Document every step, timestamps, agent names, video logs. Prepare complaint dossier. The message blinked on the screen, a clarion call to arms, and she hit send. Even in the terminus of casual travel, this was business, a matter of principle that transcended flights and schedules. Her phone vibrated almost immediately, a cascade of acknowledgments from her counsel affirmations that every moment would be recorded, every word preserved. She allowed herself a brief, confident nod before composing a second text. This one went to the airline's operations center. Resolve this or expect a formal complaint. Name Erica Monroe. Flight 407 to Seattle. Location Gate 22, TSA checkpoint. Immediate action required. As she tapped send, the soft click sounded in her ears like a gavel, sealing the first prosecution of a case no one could ignore. While the messages coursed outward, Erica surveyed the scene. The agent who had tried to belittle her stood rigid behind the podium, cheeks flushed and hands hovering uncertainly over his radio. He exchanged glances with colleagues, their uniforms crisp, but their composure cracking under the weight of public scrutiny. Passengers shifted in line, their faces a mixture of curiosity, empathy, and impatience. Smartphones were raised discreetly at first, then boldly as the story unfolded live. Erica's calm defiance captured frame by frame. Erica's general counsel, a poised woman named Alicia Ramos, appeared at her side as if summoned by her silent command. Alicia's presence was a signal this was no longer a standoff between one traveler and one agent, but a legal crucible. Behind Alicia, Erica's communications director, Marcus Lee, materialized camera in hand, ready to broadcast the developing narrative to social channels. Erica spared them a nod, a wordless acknowledgement of solidarity. The operations center message wasn't theoretical. It triggered protocols Erica had helped design. Within seconds, she imagined the airline's corporate intranet had flagged the incident, cascading alerts to regional managers, the chief legal officer, and the head of passenger services. This wasn't a routine complaint to be filed away and forgotten. It was a live incident in which the CEO of a billion-dollar aviation innovator demanded accountability on the spot. Erica adjusted the strap of her briefcase and took a small step back, creating space between herself and the weary agent. In that moment, the terminal's ambient announcements, boarding calls, gate changes seemed to falter, as though the PA system itself hesitated at the gravity of the confrontation. She let her gaze sweep the small audience gathering a family with toddlers at the next checkpoint. Business, travelers checking watches, an elderly couple clutching each other's hands. All eyes in some way were drawn to the unfolding drama. Erica's voice had once shaped policy in boardrooms. Now, without raising it, she let the environment resonate with her presence. Alicia leaned in, whispering a procedural confirmation. An official had acknowledged receipt of the Operations Center alert and would be on site within minutes. Erica smiled slightly, the hint of triumph curving her lips. She turned her gaze back to the agent, whose bravado had all but evaporated. She cleared her throat softly enough to draw attention, but not to break the calm. "I appreciate that you're following protocol," she said, voice steady and resonant. "But it's protocol that must serve passengers, not prejudice disguised as procedure." Her words rippled through the small crowd. No anger, no accusation, just unassailable logic. The agent's supervisor, a woman in a sharply pressed uniform with silver epaulets, approached from the right. Erica recognized her from the airline's annual summit. She had chaired a panel on passenger rights just months before. Their eyes met, and for a fraction of a second, Erica saw recognition and perhaps a flicker of respect before the manager's professional mask returned. She stepped forward, her heels soft on the tile floor. "Ms. Monroe," the manager began, voice measured, "I apologize for the inconvenience. We are reviewing your case now." She looked to the agent, who nearly ducked his eyes. "Please follow me to our customer service desk, and we will ensure you board your flight without further delay." It was the scripted concession, an attempt to diffuse the tension and bundle Erica into a back-office apology. Erica held up a hand. The sudden hush that followed was the kind she knew from her most decisive boardroom interventions. "Thank you," she said, her tone polite yet final. "But I must insist this be more than a lip service." She unfolded her arms slightly, indicating the open space of the checkpoint. "I will board my flight here at Gate 22, not through some back corridor. And I require written confirmation of the steps you're taking to prevent such profiling immediately." The manager's brow furrowed. This was no longer the simple apology that breezy customer service training manuals teach. She glanced at the agent, who swallowed and shifted. "Ms. Monroe, our operations team is on their way. We'll generate an incident report now." "If you could step aside for just a moment," Erica shook her head. "I will not leave this line. I will board this flight, and I will receive that incident report here in writing with timestamps and signatures." She tapped Alicia's elbow gently. Alicia produced a portable printer from her briefcase, sliding it onto the podium. A small USB port waited, the light blinking. Marcus stepped forward, handing a tablet to the manager. "Connect to your incident reporting system," Erica instructed calmly. For the second time in 20 minutes, the manager's mouth opened, then closed. She realized that Erica had turned the checkpoint into a fully functional boardroom. Phones had become recording devices. A portable printer had become a confessional. The agent's stuttered protests had faded under the weight of this orchestrated authority. Marcus fed the tablet into the printer's connection. The manager cleared her throat again and tapped through an on-screen form, her fingers flying over the virtual keyboard. Passengers craned forward, some offering murmured words of support. The toddler family actually smiled, the father raising his phone. The elderly couple clasped hands, their expressions proud. The terminal's undercurrent of impatience transformed into an undercurrent of solidarity. A few moments later, the printer spat out a crisp 3-page report. Alicia took it, flipped through the pages. Incident description, actions taken, agent and supervisor names, policy citations, commitment to follow-up. Erica reviewed it, nodding once in approval. The manager exhaled, visibly relieved that this encounter was ending without corporate lawsuits or viral scandals, though it might be too late to contain the story. Erica tucked the report into her briefcase, her movements unhurried. She inclined her head to the manager. "Thank you. I will retain this document and forward it to my legal counsel for review. Your prompt cooperation is appreciated." She turned to the agent, the source of this entire ordeal. He lifted his gaze briefly, as though he'd forgotten she was there. Erica offered him a look that conveyed forgiveness for his scripted cruelty, but no forgetfulness. In that instant, the dynamic shifted irrevocably. She had demonstrated that bias, when challenged with composed authority, unravels. She had shown that a single passenger, any passenger, could transform a moment of humiliation into a moment of institutional reform. And she had done so in the public arena before cameras and witnesses who now carried her story beyond Gate 22. Erica finally stepped through the checkpoint, the supervisor falling into step beside her as an escort. Marcus and Alicia fell in behind, discreetly closing ranks. The line of passengers parted, offering nods of respect and murmurs of admiration. Flight 407 to Seattle loomed ahead, a routine journey transformed into a narrative of dignity, power, and justice realized in real time. As she walked down the jet bridge, Erica glanced once more at the terminal beyond, where screens flashed flight statuses and social media notifications pinged with the first wave of clips. Her reflection in the glass showed only one face, calm, resolute, unbowed. She pocketed her phone, ready to board, knowing that this single act of composure and decisive action would resonate far beyond any one terminal. Behind her, the manager returned to her desk, policy manuals, open faces drawn with the gravity of institutional introspection. The agent stared at his podium, his confidence cratered by the realization that procedure unmoored from principle is powerless against accountability. Erica Monroe stepped onto the plane, her presence settling the cabin like a silent command. As she found her seat and buckled in, she allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. The world outside would soon see how dignity once mocked could be reclaimed and codified in just 30 minutes. And somewhere deep in the airline's operations center, policies were already being rewritten. Allies emerged before the second wave of indignity could settle. Erica Monroe watched as her general counsel, Jonathan Reyes, materialized at the edge of the checkpoint line, his tailored charcoal suit a striking contrast to the casually dressed travelers. At his side, PR lead Maya Patel wove through the milling passengers, smartphone in hand, ready to capture every moment. Their synchronized arrival felt choreographed, as if her private network had already sensed the injustice and rippled inward toward action. Jonathan gave Erica a subtle nod, eyes conveying readiness, legal minds primed to seize on every detail. Maya returned the gesture, a tiny lift of her phone's camera toward Erica and the now hesitant TSA agent. Erica offered them a brief, grateful glance, then tapped her index finger once against Maya's phone screen. A soft click answered the live stream had begun. In seconds, the impromptu broadcast spread beyond Gate 22's polished tile and glass partitions. Fellow passengers passed around the feed, their whispers transforming into murmurs of outrage and solidarity. As a family with a visibly bored child glanced up, their parent tilted a tablet toward the scene. Business travelers halted mid-step, eyes widening. Erica's composed figure, framed against the stark geometry of the checkpoint, became the focal point of terminal attention and almost instantly of an ever-expanding digital audience. The tide had shifted. What had begun as a private humiliation, her name mispronounced, her credentials mocked, had become a public spectacle. Faces behind her, usually preoccupied with boarding passes and duty-free shopping, now turned. Some held their smartphones aloft. Others blended relief and admiration in their stares. In the collective hush, Erica felt the static charge of accountability building around her. Jonathan whispered an update, legals recording every word and gesture. "We're ready to escalate as soon as you give the word." Maya frowned at her phone, monitoring the live comments. "This is disgusting. She's CEO of a billion-dollar airline innovator. TSA, you messed up." The comments scrolled too fast to read, a digital roar that echoed the terminal's hushed tension. Across the checkpoint, the TSA agent's bravado had crumbled. He wiped sweat from his brow, adjusting the brim of his cap as though to hide. His glances darted among his colleagues, who now shifted uncomfortably, caught between sympathy and professional obligation. Erica inhaled, drawing strength from the solidarity swelling around her. She glanced again at Maya's live stream count, already in the thousands. "Thank you both," she said softly, voice carrying enough for nearby travelers to catch. "Let's give them one more chance." She turned to the agent, her gaze unwavering. "I'd like to attempt boarding again." "Please process my boarding pass." The agent stammered, fingers hovering over his scanner. Beside him, his supervisor, now visibly embarrassed, cleared her throat. "Ma'am, we have received an alert from our central office. Please allow me to process you." The supervisor's tone was gentle, but it carried the weight of authority and acknowledgement that this moment demanded resolution, not further deflection. Erica nodded. "Thank you." She stepped forward, sliding her boarding pass under the scanner. The device beeped, green light flashing. Behind her, the live stream captured every detail, the agent's reluctant nod. The supervisor's apology murmured under her breath, the queue of passengers exhaling in collective relief. As she walked through the metal detectors, Erica let her phone fall into her palm, the live stream still rolling. Maya stepped alongside her, both providing cover and ensuring the story continued to be told. Jonathan fell in behind, confirming with a quick message that a formal incident report would be filed and the airline's legal department notified. Once clear of the checkpoint stanchions, Erica paused. She turned and looked back at the agent and his supervisor. The agent met her gaze, shame flickering in his eyes. No apology escaped his lips, words seemed too feeble for what had transpired. Instead, Erica offered a single nod, a gesture of assurance that justice had been served, accountability acknowledged. Then she resumed her stride, passing through the automatic doors into the departure lounge. The live stream captured her final silhouette against the warm glow of the waiting area. Passengers leaned forward, mouths parted in applause that rippled through the seating area. Minutes later, Maya cut the live stream with a brief statement. "This is Erica Monroe. Today, dignity was defended in Gate 22. Thank you for standing with us." The broadcast ended, but its impact was only beginning. In the operations center back at Skyway Innovations, legal flags popped up. An official complaint had been lodged, supported by time-stamped video and eyewitness accounts. At the TSA's regional headquarters, alarms blinked on dashboards. An official review committee would convene within 24 hours. On social media, hashtags exploded, #DignityAtGate22, Erica Monroe, #Stop the Mockery. Erica settled into her seat on Flight 407. As the plane taxied toward the runway, she allowed herself a brief smile, one born not of triumph alone, but of justice realized. Around her, fellow passengers exchanged congratulatory nods and murmured thanks. In that moment, the aisle of Gate 22 had transformed into an arena of accountability, and she had emerged victorious. In under 30 minutes, a single act of prejudice had been challenged, and policy was already stirring toward reform. Erica Monroe's composed defiance had illuminated the power each person holds to demand respect, turning a mocking snub into a global affirmation of dignity under terminal lights. The terminal's ambient hum shifted into a charged silence as the airline's regional manager, a tall, impeccably dressed man with silvering hair, emerged from the security office flanked by two stern-faced chiefs. Their badges glinted under the fluorescent lights, declarations of authority, summoned to confront the spectacle unfolding at Gate 22. Erica Monroe stood beside her counsel in PR lead posture, unbowed gaze, unflinching. Behind her, smartphones and laptops recorded every detail, each click and flash, capturing a moment no one present would soon forget. The regional manager paused before Erica, offering only a curt nod. His lips parted, but his carefully cultivated calm faltered under the weight of a viral live stream and the mounting pressure of witness scrutiny. Erica met his eyes without hesitation. The memory of her name belittled still simmering in her veins. Her suit tailored to precision power, and every seam felt like armor as she prepared to deliver her ultimatum. Effective immediately, Erica began, her voice measured yet resonant, carrying through the quiet terminal as if amplified by unseen speakers. "I will file suit right here for every passenger who has ever borne the sting of bias at this checkpoint." Each word landed deliberately, echoing off polished tiles and reflecting in the watchful eyes of onlookers. "This isn't a personal vendetta," she continued, unclipping her earpiece and setting it aside, "but a stand for dignity and accountability. If your policies allow prejudice to masquerade as procedure, then they must be rewritten." Murmurs rippled through the gathered crowd. Her general counsel, Jonathan Reyes, stepped forward, holding a tablet aloft. "We have documentation," he said, voice low but emphatic. He swiped once, and the screen displayed time-stamped video clips of the TSA agent's mockery. Erica's composed demands for policy proof, and the initial messages Erica had sent to the airline's legal center. Passengers leaned in, grouping around the scene like spectators at an impromptu tribunal. The manager's jaw clenched as he absorbed the evidence arrayed before him. The regional manager swallowed, exhaling slowly. He motioned to one of his security chiefs, who produced a sleek Airline-branded tablet. "Ms. Monroe," he said, voice quivering with reluctant respect, "we understand the gravity of your concerns. Here is a preliminary agreement, compensation for your inconvenience, and a commitment to immediate policy reform." He slid the tablet across the small barrier toward Erica, the screen displaying draft terms, formal apologies, a waiver of change fees, and an expedited agenda for bias training workshops. "We want to discuss these terms with your counsel," he added, lifting his chin in deference to Jonathan and Erica's legal team. Erica's eyes flicked to Jonathan, who offered a subtle nod before replying. "We appreciate the prompt response," Jonathan said, voice courteous but firm. "However, this initial offer only scratches the surface. We will review and provide detailed feedback within the hour. In the meantime, we expect this checkpoint to resume normal operations under the revised guidelines. Any verbal or procedural profiling will be grounds for immediate disciplinary action." The manager hesitated, then tapped his tablet. Behind them, Erica's PR lead, Maya Patel, whispered into her phone, updating their live feed. Breaking Airline Regional Manager agrees to sit down with CEO Erica Monroe for compensation talks and policy overhaul, Gate 22 now. On nearby screens, the airline's customer service Twitter handle flashed a public apology. "We're sorry. We're listening." Updates at 5 p.m. As the manager and his team retreated to a vacant desk nearby, Erica allowed herself a measured exhale. The tension in her shoulders eased slightly, but her gaze remained vigilant. Around her, passengers burst into quiet applause, an eruption of solidarity that felt as much a vindication as any legal settlement could provide. A mother with a stroller offered a thumbs up. A group of corporate travelers murmured congratulations. Even a handful of TSA agents off to the side gave respectful nods. Erica turned to Maya and Jonathan. "Let's ensure the press release highlights that this is about systemic change, not just personal recompense," she said softly. Maya tapped her notes, already drafting language policy revision under equity mandate, mandatory unconscious bias training, airport-wide procedural audits. Jonathan consulted the video logs, marking precise clips to reinforce their case. The seamless choreography of professional expertise made the moment feel not reactive but preordained, a testament to how she had prepared for this possibility even before her name badge was mocked. In the next few minutes, the regional manager's team convened with Erica's counsel at a small folding table just beyond the checkpoint stanchions. Passengers edged closer, phones raised to capture the closed-door negotiation. While the technical details of compensation and training schedules were hashed out, Erica watched, silent and authoritative, ensuring every concession was documented and every promise time-stamped. As the final agreement was typed into the tablet, complete with signatures and digital seals, Erica rose. She stepped forward, her figure framed by the terminal's glass doors that led to the departure gates. The press release was circulated to waiting reporters. The airline CEO issued a personal statement within minutes, praising Erica's calm determination and vowing a cultural reset at checkpoints nationwide. Erica's legal team confirmed that the case file would be filed by the end of the day, ensuring the judicial process moved forward even as policy changes took immediate effect. Erica's stride toward her gate was steady, each footstep a beat in the terminal's applause. Travelers opened a path for her, some offering nods, others murmuring gratitude for standing up against prejudice. As she cleared security for real this time, no mockery, no delay. She allowed herself a small, triumphant smile. The boarding pass scanner beeped green, the gates beyond beckoned. In the minutes that followed, social media exploded. Gr. Erica Monroe. At Gate 22 trended with thousands sharing screenshots of the live footage and quotes from Erica's declaration. Airline stock tickers showed a slight uptick as investors reacted positively to the company's swift response. Civil rights groups lauded the incident as modern-day Rosa Parks moment, while legal commentators predicted the lawsuit would become a landmark case in travel discrimination law. Erica boarded Flight 407 with a quiet sense of closure and the knowledge that her fight had been neither solitary nor in vain. In the cabin, she settled into her seat, the window beside her offering a golden sunset over the runway. As the engines roared to life, Erica looked out at the horizon, a vast expanse that seemed to mirror the endless possibilities born of that 30-minute showdown. In the back of her mind, she drafted her next steps, monitoring the airline's compliance, supporting fellow travelers who lacked her resources, and perhaps one day sharing her story as a case study in unwavering resolve. But for now, as the aircraft lifted into the sky, Erica Monroe allowed herself a moment of peace. She had transformed insult into action, indignity into institutional reform, all under the stark glare of Gate 22's fluorescent lights. And in that, she had rewritten the rules of respect for every passenger who followed. Gate 22 fell into a hush so absolute it felt like the entire terminal was holding its breath. Erica Monroe and the airline's regional manager stood face to face, framed by the scuffed steel bollards and ribbon of retractable belt barriers, symbols of division now rendered meaningless. Around them, smartphones and tablets hovered, their lenses trained on the defining moment of the day. The clatter of rolling suitcases and distant boarding calls faded into the background, replaced by the quiet click of a form appearing on the manager's tablet. On the screen, bold text read, "Airline Anti-Profiling Pledge. No traveler shall be subjected to differential treatment based on name appearance or the assumptions of individual staff. Any complaint will invoke immediate review and public reporting." Beneath it lay signature fields for both parties, along with an embedded timestamp and auto-generated policy number. Erica's counsel, Jonathan Reyes, whispered, "Make sure the digital record includes the video evidence." The manager nodded, tapping a yes checkbox to embed the live stream footage directly into the pledge's audit log. Erica's PR director, Maya Patel, discreetly confirmed on her phone that the live feed was capturing every second, every keystroke. The manager extended his finger toward the signature line. Erica leaned in, touching the screen with practiced confidence. Her inscription, Erica Monroe, CEO, Skyway Innovations, appeared in elegant script followed by the timestamp. Then the manager added his own signature, Walter Thompson, Regional Manager, Airlink Airlines. A soft chime punctuated the agreement, and the form auto-generated an official release notice. In that instant, Gate 22's digital displays flickered, Airlink Airlines Anti-Profiling Pledge now in effect. "Thank you, Ms. Erica Monroe." The text scrolled across the departure boards, visible to every passenger waiting in the concourse. A ripple of astonished applause spread through the crowd. First polite, then determined, until the entire line seemed to rise in salute. Erica straightened her posture, still radiating quiet authority. She allowed herself a brief, satisfied smile as a handful of nearby travelers offered nods of respect and murmured congratulations. A mother whispered to her daughter, "That's how you stand up for yourself," while a businessman tapped Erica on the shoulder, shaking her hand with a look of profound admiration. Maya slipped closer, voice low but excited. "The press advisory is going live. We'll have headlines in minutes." Erica nodded, turning to Jonathan. "Ensure the legal notice goes to our partners and to the Department of Transportation," she instructed. "This stays front page until we see compliance across all checkpoints." As they spoke, the airline staff who had once tolerated the agent's mockery now moved to reset the line. The TSA agent himself offered a stiff apology voice, wavering but respectful. "Ms. Monroe, I apologize for the misunderstanding. Your boarding pass, please." Erica handed it over smoothly. He scanned it without further comment, allowing her to proceed. The gates beyond opened as though recognizing her rightful passage. Erica passed through the checkpoint, her footsteps echoing on the polished floor. The terminal's ambient noise returned the roll of wheeled luggage, the chatter of fellow travelers, the distant murmur of engines through the open tarmac doors. But the air felt changed, charged with the promise of accountability. Above the security lanes, digital banners now bore the airline's new slogan, "Every name matters, every passenger respected." Reaching the boarding lounge, Erica paused to look back toward Gate 22. A crowd remained there, cameras raised, capturing interviews with bystanders, and even a few of the agent's colleagues offering their own public apologies. The regional manager addressed a small cluster of reporters outlining next steps. "We will implement bias awareness training within 30 days, establish an anonymous feedback hotline, and publish quarterly enforcement reports." His words were met with nods and the scribble of notebooks. Erica watched for a moment. This public commitment, born of her calm but unyielding stand, would ripple through every corner of the travel industry. Then she turned and walked to the gate where her flight was boarding. She allowed herself one last glance at the screens displaying the pledge, and the airline's apology imprinting the message in her mind. Dignity demanded action, and action could remake the world. As she settled into her seat by the window, Erica inhaled the recycled cabin air, feeling both relieved and triumphant. The roar of the engines as they spooled to life felt less like a departure and more like a launch, a testament to the power of a single moment of resolve. She placed her briefcase in the overhead bin, then looked out at the runway stretching toward the horizon. The sun dipped low, casting elongated shadows across the tarmac, as if echoing the long shadow of change she had just set in motion. Moments later, the aircraft began to push back from the gate. Through the small oval window, Erica watched Gate 22, and its revolving doors grow smaller, a symbol of barriers dismantled. As the plane taxied toward the runway, she reached for her phone, sending a simple message to her leadership team. Mission accomplished. Onward. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Flight 407 to Seattle. We apologize for the delay and thank you for your patience. Erica's lips curved into a subtle smile. Patience rewarded injustice, confronted, and policy rewritten in real time. And as Flight 407 lifted into the twilight sky, Gate 22, and the world beneath it settled into a new equilibrium, one where every traveler's name, every identity, and every story would carry the weight of respect it deserved. The airport's usual hustle softened into a hum of astonishment as news of Gate 22's showdown spread like wildfire. Terminal screens flickered with the headline, Erica Effect Sweeps Skyway. Innovation CEOs stand at TSA checkpoint, and the ripple of solidarity was immediate. Business travelers paused mid-conversation to tap out tweets. Families huddled by the news kiosks reading about the incident that had transformed a moment of mockery into a masterclass in accountability. The ripple grew into a wave when airport intercoms coyly announced, Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to salute Ms. Erica Monroe for inspiring our new anti-profiling pledge drawing. Polite applause from passing crowds. In the concourse cafes, baristas swapped breathless accounts of the live stream's climax, where Erica's unwavering demand had forced an airline executive to vow sweeping reforms. A mother sipping her morning latte leaned toward her daughter and whispered, See that? That's what happens when you stand up for yourself. Nearby, a group of veterans in uniform raised nods of camaraderie, their respect palpable as they recognized the courage it took to challenge an institution so publicly. Industry blogs and news sites, ever quick to analyze a viral moment, weighed in. Aviation Week. Online proclaimed Skyway's CEO delivers viral verdict. A corporate coup at Gate 22, while Business Insider headlined, When a name becomes power. How Erica Monroe turned TSA bias into boardroom policy. LinkedIn feeds lit up with commentary from HR professionals and diversity officers, sharing takeaways on real-time conflict resolution and the value of decisive leadership. Even the Department of Transportation's Twitter account issued a congratulatory nod. #Erica Effect exemplifies the importance of passenger dignity in air travel. At Airlink. Airlines, well done on swift policy action. Back at Gate 22, the scene of the turnaround, the regional manager and TSA supervisors convened an impromptu press debrief. Phones recorded every word as they outlined the timeline from the initial slur to the public pledge in just 30 minutes. They spoke of mandatory bias awareness training for all frontline staff, the creation of an anonymous passenger feedback portal, and quarterly compliance audits visible to the traveling public. It was a playbook for crisis management that few expected to see enacted so swiftly and so publicly. Meanwhile, Erica herself moved through the terminal with quiet purpose. As she approached her boarding lounge, business travelers fell into step behind her, some offering nods, others simply stepping aside to let her pass. Each gesture, however slight, underscored the collective validation she'd earned. A fellow passenger intercepted her with a smile and an outstretched hand. Thank you for what you did for all of us. Erica accepted the handshake with grace, replying, We all deserve respect before continuing on her way. At the Skyway Innovations corporate office that afternoon, the staff watched the viral moments unfold on a live conference link. Screens displayed the TSA pledge Eric's settlement offer in the live digital form and the trending hashtags climbing into the top spot. The mood was electric. Cheers erupted as they saw their CEO reclaim not only her own dignity, but also set a precedent for corporate resolve. The head of communications, Maya Patel, typed out a congratulatory message in the company-wide chat. Erica's stand is our brand's heartbeat. Proud to be part of #Erica Effect. The office floor buzzed with admiration and with the knowledge that their leader had once again turned a personal injustice into a public good. Across the airline's operations center, the digital form Airline's anti-profiling pledge registered thousands of passenger acknowledgments within hours. Travelers boarding evening flights encountered pop-up reminders on their mobile tickets. Review our anti-profiling policy. A visible sign that policy was no longer buried in fine print, but front and center. Customer satisfaction scores ticked upward, and social sentiment analyses showed a marked increase in positive mentions for the airline. Perhaps most tellingly, over the next few days, managers reported a sharp decline in profiling complaints, a testament to the power of real-time accountability triggered by a single decisive stand. Back on social media, the hashtag #Erica Effect continued to trend, but it evolved from a moment of outrage into a broader conversation about leadership in the face of bias. Twitter threads shared stories of professionals, Black CEOs, and otherwise who found their own #Erica Effect, recounting times they'd refused to be sidelined by prejudice. LinkedIn Pulse articles dissected the incident as a case study in executive crisis response, while TikTok creators recreated the standoff in dramatic reenactments that ended with the pledge's digital signature lighting up Gate 22's screens. As Erica finally settled into her seat, the cabin lights dimmed and the captain's voice welcomed passengers aboard Flight 407. She watched through the window as Gate 22 receded, now stripped of its previous tension, reassigned to new travelers whose names would be honored without compromise. The jet engine spooled with a confident roar, carrying her and the policies she'd inspired toward new horizons. In the days that followed, Erica's stand inspired corporate boards, government agencies, and nonprofits to examine their own access and inclusion policies. Board meeting agendas across industries began featuring the #Erica Effect as talking points under commitment to equity. Hospitals, hotels, and even retail chains launched reviews of their frontline training, mindful that a single moment of bias could spiral into a public relations crisis or an opportunity for reform. By week's end, the narrative had crystallized. A Black CEO, humble yet unyielding, had faced a moment of humiliation at an airport checkpoint and within 30 minutes catalyzed lasting change. The story became emblematic of the broader struggle for respect in professional spaces, and Erica Monroe's name became synonymous with effective principled leadership. In the terminal's restaurants, coffee shops, and lounges, travelers carried her story with them, a reminder that dignity belongs to every individual and that injustice, when confronted with resolve, can yield transformative progress. And so, as Flight 407 soared toward its destination, Erica settled back in her seat, notebook open to the next chapter. The hashtag on her boarding pass, #Erica Effect, served not merely as a memory of a past victory, but as a beacon for the future that every professional, regardless of background, has the power to rewrite the rules when they refuse to be defined by prejudice, and that sometimes all it takes is 30 minutes of unwavering conviction. In the days that followed Gate 22's watershed moment, Erica Monroe's decisive stand reverberated far beyond the airport terminal. By week's end, airlines across the nation, spurred by media pressure, passenger solidarity, and the undeniable logic of equity, had formally adopted the Airline Anti-Profiling Pledge. Digital billboards and concourses heralded the announcement, "Major carriers unite to safeguard passenger dignity." News anchors chronicled each carrier's commitment, juxtaposing footage of Erica's confrontation with interviews of executives, reaffirming that no traveler's identity would again be subject to arbitrary mockery or suspicion. At Skyway Innovations headquarters, Erica's team watched the unfolding developments in real time. In the glass-walled war room overlooking downtown skyline, strategy decks that once focused solely on sustainability milestones now featured slides on institutionalizing the #Erica Effect, a roadmap for replicating swift, principled action in every sphere of corporate responsibility. Maya Patel, Erica's PR director, tapped out a congratulatory memo to all staff. "Today we see how conviction meets policy. Thank you for supporting a culture that demands respect and a world that will no longer tolerate silence in the face of prejudice. Meanwhile, in boardrooms from New York to Tokyo, the incident became a case study in leadership seminars and compliance workshops. Executives pored over the timeline how 30 minutes of composed confrontation, strategic escalation, and public accountability transformed a moment of discrimination into a catalyst for systemic change. Corporate trainers wove the Gate 22 narrative into role-playing exercises, challenging emerging leaders to practice decisive intervention when confronting bias, whether subtle or overt. The recurring lesson was clear: dignity cannot be tabled until later. Justice demanded in the moment demands policy in real time. At Airline's newly inaugurated Customer Equity Hub, Erica's likeness adorned a feature wall alongside her trademark affirmation, "Respect is the first class in any journey." Staff members from gate agents to flight attendants participated in interactive kiosks simulating real-life scenarios. Each scenario began with bias disguised as procedure and ended with a prompt, "What would you do if this passenger were you?" The interactive training modules underscored the pledge's 4 pillars: transparency, accountability, inclusivity, and restitution. By the end of the week, thousands of airline employees had completed the new curriculum, each certificate bearing the #Erica Effect emblem. Travelers themselves became ambassadors of the new standard. Influencers posted videos at terminals declaring "I fly with equity," while families planning reunions checked airline websites for the pledge banner before booking. Frequent flyer forums lit up with gratitude. "Finally, my grandmother can learn to fly without worry," and proud to support an industry that values every name equally. Even infographics comparing pre- and post-pledge complaint rates went viral, illustrating a dramatic drop in profiling incidents. Meanwhile, Erica, fresh from her viral moment, returned to the cabin of Flight 407 with a sense of purpose renewed. As the plane ascended into the sunset, she reflected on the journey from the sting of mockery at Gate 22 to the triumphant pledge that now bound carriers to her vision of dignity for all. Her eco-leather briefcase, once a vessel of policy drafts and shareholder reports, now held a copy of the formal anti-profiling pledge signed by 7 major airlines. She slipped the document into her in-flight folder, a tangible symbol that bias, once confronted, can be codified out of existence. Back on terra firma, the passenger announcement ringtone, a soft flourish of piano, ushered in the pledge's arrival at home. Erica's phone lit up with messages from passengers she'd never met thanking her, from CEOs of other industries asking for her insights, even from TSA leadership exploring how airport security could integrate a similar real-time accountability protocol. Each message carried the same sentiment: the world was watching and learning, that discrimination need not be endured but can be undone in the span of a single confrontation. Medical journals, long preoccupied with clinical studies, now featured op-eds on the Erica effect in healthcare access, drawing parallels between security profiling and patient intake biases. Educational associations updated their curricula, integrating Erica's stand into ethics courses for law and public policy students. In one prestigious lecture hall, a professor paused mid-slide to ask her class, "What would you have done at Gate 22? The room fell silent until hands began to raise, each student eager to articulate the lessons of courage, clarity, and conviction. On the streets below, posters fluttered at bus stops. Erica's profile overlaid with the words "dignity in transit, everywhere, every time." Community organizations rallied behind the slogan, hosting dignity walks through transit hubs where participants shared personal stories of bias and pledges to intervene when witnessing injustice. The Erica effect had leapt from the airport to every corner of public life, proving that when one person refuses to be silenced, a movement can take flight. In the heart of the airline's operations center, where screens once tracked flight statuses and weather patterns, a new ticker ran in parallel real-time metrics of the anti-profiling pledge's impact. Complaint rates plummeted, employee survey scores rose, passenger satisfaction soared. A digital board counted down to the next quarterly review, where carriers would publicly report their compliance. For Erica and her allies, the work was far from over, but the momentum was unmistakable. A precedent had been set that bias, once unmasked, could be managed and ultimately eradicated. As week's end dawned, the terminal at Gate 22 once again became a symbol of transformation rather than tension. The Airline anti-profiling pledge banner hung proudly above the entrance as travelers scanned their boarding passes with renewed confidence. Gate agents trained in the new protocols greeted each passenger by name, listening, acknowledging, and treating every boarding pass as the first line of a new chapter in equitable travel. The velvet rope of indifference had been replaced by a runway of respect. And so as Flight 407 prepared for its next departure, its engines humming in anticipation. Erica Monroe settled into her seat one final time for the week, watching the golden light of dusk spill across the horizon. In her lap lay the signed pledge, a testament to the power of immediate action, that an insult at a checkpoint need not be the final word but the opening note of reform. Dignity once denied had taken wing and soared again.